he's been working on this stuff, and it's awesome.
Excuse me for a second, we had a few minor technical problems. So we're running just a second behind, and I'm taller than my mic. Okay, so welcome to my show and tell. My name is Cypher Ghost, and I've been mailing weird things myself and with others for a couple of years. This presentation runs about 30 minutes or so, so if you'll hold questions, there'll be plenty of time for questions, because I have questions for you as well, and I don't want to miss out on that. My interest in this got started back in '88. I was into the BBS scene and downloaded a macro that made those tall and short barcodes that you see on all of your envelopes. They're called postnet codes. And the idea behind this macro for Microsoft Word was that you'd be able to spray these on and your mail would get there faster. But the guy wanted like $50, and I was a poor high school student, and so I wrote my own. But there's not instructions on how to do that, so I had to learn how to get specifications from the post office, and they won't do it unless you're a business, and so I had to make up reasons and basically learn social engineering along the way. It got a lot worse in college when I had even more time and a huge research library that included things like the Annals of Improbable Research, who ran a neat article on weird stuff they were sending. And then, of course, Wired's return to sender contest that they run every month. It's in the editorial section, and the weirdest thing they get in the mail gets a free T-shirt or something like that. Now, a lot of people wonder why the post office matters to them. It's really important to our economy because it's a universal delivery service, and it's really, really cheap. Nobody in here is going to take something to California for 42 cents except the post office. And a lot of banking, a lot of business, medical supplies, books, libraries, everybody uses the postal system. And so it's really important to us. It's also neat from a libertarian standpoint because it's a fiscally independent government organization. And there's not a lot of these out there. It is a private corporation, although all the shares are owned by the Fed. None of your tax dollars goes to paying for postal delivery service. They completely have to raise their own money. And it'd be nice if a few other agencies had to do that too. It's also really useful for explaining hacking techniques to managers, because people are really familiar with the postal system. They know how it works. Well, they know how to use it, and there's a lot of ways you can abuse it that are similar to techniques we might use in the computer world, but you don't have to be a computer person to understand it. So let's start off by looking at how a letter gets from point A to point B. And when you drop your letter off in the mail, one of the first things that happens is it gets oriented and canceled. Stamps glow under ultraviolet B. This is not black light, quote unquote. Yeah, it's a shorter wavelength, higher energy. But it allows the computing equipment to see which side of the envelope is the address side, and also which direction to turn it. Now, if you're going to play with this, remember that UV will burn your retinas. You'll get a sunburn on your eye, and it doesn't really heal, so wear eye protection. Just the cheap $2 safety glasses from Home Depot leave a nice shadow where it blocks pretty much all of the UV. And most sunglasses do as well. So please don't hurt yourself. So the next thing that happens is they take a picture of your envelope, and then they spray an orange barcode on the back. It's a fluorescent orange, and it doesn't show up very well on projectors, but it uses different space instead of tall and short in order to encode zeros and ones. And the reason they take a picture of your envelope is so they can run the address through an OCR system and try to figure out what the whole address is, including the zip code. And if they can't figure it out, like if you have a doctor's handwriting, they send the images to Singapore, and they have armies of people working for, I don't know, probably like 70 cents an hour typing in addresses. Now, you might wonder, why do we need the entire address, not just the zip code? And the reason is they will take that and they'll apply forwarding. So let's say I'm here in New York, and I mail my friend in San Francisco a letter, but he's actually moved to Miami. Their computer will go, oh, we have a forwarding order for this person. There's no reason to truck this to California and then back again. We'll just send it straight to Miami. So they save a lot of money. And that's part of, even though postage rates keep going up, it's actually going down when you look at the inflation rate. So a lot of these automations and additional efficiencies in the postal stream have helped it remain really competitive. Now, after we figured out where it's going, we apply carrier pre-sorting. And the post office has this huge database of all the addresses that they deliver to. And this is what they use to apply those extra 4 digits to the end of your barcode. They also add 2 more digits called the delivery point code, and that's the actual stop number that the mail truck makes as it's driving down the street. So the computer system, after it sprays that barcode on, uses it to route the mail and sort the mail all the way down to the point where the mailman just opens the box, grabs the next bundle, and shoves it in, and doesn't have to do a lot of manual sorting. The zip forcoding scheme, if you look at it carefully, it's broken up into different sides of the street. That's how we get odd and even number ranges. This particular street that we drew a sample of is a cul-de-sac, but it's intersected by another street. So it changes about halfway through where that intersection is. I think the mail truck takes a right-hand turn. And it's also interesting that whoever's at 815 is at the end of the cul-de-sac, and he has his own zip plus 4 code. There. And there's a lot of addresses like this, particularly post office boxes. But it gets interesting because you can just write the zip plus 4 on an envelope, and it will get delivered. Now, I suspect that in the future, the post office will come up with this really brainiac idea that they can just hand out numbers that have nothing to do with zip, and that you'll register your physical address so that when you move, you don't actually have to change your address with all your magazine subscriptions and all your junk mail. You can just tell the post office, hey, I'm number 528-675-382-1119, and I've changed addresses. Yeah, somebody suggests a social security number, but businesses don't have social security numbers, and yeah, that would be a bad idea. Yeah, it'd be neat if you could have multiple numbers as well that point to the same person. But anyway, this begs the question that, well, what would happen if I just put the zip code, just put the barcode on an envelope and mail it? And the answer is it doesn't quite work that well, but almost. This was going to a post office box, and we sent several other pieces of mail to the same post office box that had various addressing problems. And we got back this exact same stamp with the broken E and broken R and the slightly smudged upper finger and the gunk stuck in the E. So we know that this envelope made it all the way to the destination post office box. And I think what happened was that the postal clerk who's putting it in the cubicles couldn't figure out which cubicle it went in, and so he gave it the finger and sent it back. All right, but since these barcodes are just read by the computer and it doesn't think anything of it, this is our first opportunity to mess with the system. So I was in Baltimore, as you can see by the post office, the postmark at the top, and we sent this letter to Atlanta, but we used the tall and short postnet code for Hilo, Hawaii. And when we do these, we always send a control envelope at the same time that's perfectly addressed normally so we can judge how much delay there is in the process. This added 2 weeks to the delivery time. And it's also nice that they postmarked it again when they finally figured it out and blacked out the barcode so that their machine wouldn't keep sending it back to Hawaii. So this, in addition to this being an input validation issue, because so many things rely on the post office or use the post office as a benchmark, this allows you to hack other things. Now, I pay all my taxes electronically, so if there's any IRS agents in the office, I've never done this. But since your tax payment only has to be postmarked by April 15th, not necessarily received, if somebody sent their payment to the Philadelphia office, but they coded it with, I don't know, one of those fishing villages in Alaska that only gets mail once a month, your check just got floated. So there's a lot of attacks like that where you can use the post office to do other things. So we took the strange addressing a couple more steps further, and we made some other envelopes to see how good is this OCR system. And we've taken a number, there's church sign generator here, and we've done a couple of others where we've used a picture, and the address was somewhere in the picture. And in every case, these have been delivered. We've never had one of these get lost. And on average, we have less than 1 day delay between these and the control envelope. So we thought, okay, well, how good is the post office? Let's try some CAPTCHAs. You laugh, but 3 out of 4 of these arrived with no delay whatsoever. One in the bottom right-hand corner, which is a red and green camouflage pattern, it never arrived. And in general, we don't put return addresses on our experiments because we want to force them to put it through. We don't want to give them the option to just give it the finger and send it back and be lazy. So they end up in the dead letter office and probably shredded. We've sent addresses that are red, and we've sent addresses that are green, and those both arrive with no problems whatsoever. But somehow mixing them up in the same characters just confuses the heck out of them. So postnets have been around for, 25 years or so, and they're going to get replaced with this new thing called OneCode. The post office has come out with this thing called Planet, which is sort of a serial number. And let's say I'm a mass mailer. I don't know, I'm Sears, and I'm sending out catalogs. I don't know if they send catalogs anymore or not, but yeah, so I get lots of junk mail. So let's say I'm a junk mail company, and I can, in addition to the zip code and the routing information, I can put a serial number on the bottom. And every time my mail passes through some sorting equipment, the post office will send me a signal and say, it says, hey, the equipment over here saw this barcode at this time. And so I can use that to judge how well my mail is propagating. And I can also use this the other direction. So you'll see this on a lot of Visa and American Express statements now, where your stub that you mail back with your payment has one of those codes. So now they can tell that you dropped your payment in the mail. And maybe if it gets delayed, they won't charge you a late fee, or maybe they'll use it for cash flow forecasting, since they have a pretty good idea whether you pay your balance all the time or just pay the minimum, or if you pay it off completely. So now if you want to monkey around with them, you could send another envelope, but reuse the number that was assigned to you. You can either do this by just slapping another envelope, or you can make your own one code, and you could mail a letter to your mom, yourself even, and their computer would go, oh, there's a payment from so-and-so. Okay, so I'm not the only person who's doing this. And one of the earlier works I saw was a book from Loom Panics called How to Screw with the Post Office. And one of the questions that comes up in this is, some of the stuff, and there's no real way to get a legal opinion from the post office on whether you can do some of this or not. So you have to think of ways that you can do these experiments that don't hurt anything and don't technically violate the law. And this guy came up with a really neat idea. He says that he went to a utility company and asked them for all the used envelopes from payments because he wanted to see what other people were doing. I think he dumpster dove. But in any case, one of the things he discovered was that if you take the large commemorative stamps and cut them in half, that there's enough of that ultraviolet tag in there that the post office says, oh, this has got a stamp on it, cancel it and send it on. And so we wondered, where else would that work? Now, Mr. Wizard tells us that the glue in the stamp is actually what contains the tagant. So if you have a sheet or a pane of stamps, the little edge stuff also glows. So you know where this is going. We put a whole bunch of it on the envelope, and sure enough, it postmarked it and passed it through. Now, it would really, really suck to be stuck in federal prison for stealing 42 cents of stamps. And I'm pretty sure that would make me everybody's bitch. So one of the other cool things we discovered was that 2-cent stamps don't glow. So we covered the back with 2-cent stamps, and thus we paid the postage on this envelope. Now there's other stuff that glows too. Any of the meter marks glow, and those glow under UVA, so you can see that under a black light. You can also get these prepaid envelopes from the post office. They add like an extra 3 or 4 cents to cover the cost of the paper. And it just has that tiny little strip that's like maybe the size of my thumbnail that glows. So it doesn't take very much at all to trick the cancellation equipment into thinking that's an actual envelope. But the cancellation equipment has some other issues too. Since it uses the stamp to orient the envelope, we were like, what would happen if we put it in different places? And there's a couple of neat ones. The upper right one, you can see the barcode is on the top. So it actually processed the envelope upside down. That one arrived with that one arrived, I think, a day later, and the one right below it had the same problem. It arrived 3 days later. The other two, I think, actually arrived on control time. But it's interesting that there's several positions you can put it where it can't reach and it can't cancel. So you can kind of mess the machine up. It is illegal to reuse a stamp even if it's not canceled, so we have these in the safe, and we can demonstrate that we haven't reused them. So those are some of the cool things you can do with envelopes. But packages are fun, too. So we've sent a variety of fun packages. The happy face there is probably the most fun. It was a 12-inch ball. I think it was a Walmart promotion. And so we wrote on the back. I sent it to my parents, actually, and I put stamps on it and wrote their address and took it to the counter because I wasn't sure like what surcharges would apply. And so he puts it on the scale, and he turns around to his computer to type in the zip code, and it rolls off the scale and goes, wham! And hits the floor. So he picks it up, and this is just a postal clerk. So he puts it on the scale again, turns around again, rolls off. So finally, he puts some pins on the scale and makes a little triangle and zeros it and weighs it, and we get a stamp sticker for it, and all is good. And he looks at it and says, "I'm not sure what to do with this. I'm going to take it in the back." And so he takes it in the back room, he puts it on a table, and he comes out, and you hear, "Wow, wow!" It got to my parents just fine. It took 5 days, I think, to make it to from Atlanta to Washington, D.C., and it was just covered with dents. We're going to take questions at the end. No, it'll mess up my cadence. The pennies were kind of fun. My car tag paperwork got messed up, and you can just never talk to the people at the car tag office. And so I said, well, I'll just guess how much money I'm supposed to send, and we sent it in pennies. But we did this with one of those flat rate priority mailboxes. So people often ask me, what do postal people think about your projects? And I'm like, well, when you walk up to them with a 70-pound flat rate priority mailbox, They like catching and they go, yeah, you're really taking advantage of the system here. But when they ask what's in it, you tell them it's pennies for the tag office, they love you.